wanted to talk to you a little bit today about this Norton chopper. So, I'm not an expert in Norton choppers. I'm not an expert in Nortons. But we've reached a time where fewer and fewer people know anything about some of these older machines. So this is kind of the peak of the British motorcycle industry, early 70s, 750cc Norton. So I don't know if you can see there, but there's little nylon bushings. This engine was effectively rubber mounted. The engine and transmission are separate, but they're well attached to each other, so it stays put really well. This would have had amyl carburetors on it, two of them, but the owner wanted me to make it run. After I got it running with the amyl carburetors, which were cutting edge 1960, I hate them. They leak, they're fussy. We replaced it with a simple round slide Mikuni. Now the guy he got it from, so I'm repairing it for one guy, I'm getting it running for him. The guy he got it from just put it in bike shows, never rode it. So it wasn't built to ride, it was built to look at. Well, that creates some problems. So he thought he wanted to go batteryless since it's a kick-only engine, took the battery out and just wired things directly to the chassis. Can't do that. If you want to run batteryless, you remove the battery, but you put a capacitor across where the battery would mount. Now, this had a battery box. They had upgraded the regulator rectifier from the Zener diode and rectifier to a Podtronic, which is a solid-state regulator rectifier system. And they had mounted that in the hole under the seat here where the battery was supposed to go. So I moved that. It's now mounted on the bottom of the oil tank, and inside the battery hole, I put the battery back. You've already got that hole. You're not saving any space. It doesn't look any different with a battery in it. But now it runs. So if you've got a kick-only bike with a points ignition system and you decide you want to go batteryless, that's fine. Take the battery out, put a capacitor in place of the battery. However, if you've still got the hole where the battery's supposed to go, well, you might just well run a battery. And you can't run a lead-acid battery very effectively because the vibrations, again, British twin, is going to beat that battery to death. So we put a gel battery in so it can vibrate all day long. It's not going to hurt that battery. It's small. It doesn't have to be very big. Kick only. It's not going to run an electric starter. So these old British bikes, too, they run positive ground. So the positive side of the battery cable goes to the chassis, and all of your wiring is for the negative side, not the positive side of the battery. What else? The person who did the original build, where they moved it from the swing arm chassis into this rigid chassis, they botched the axle adjusters for the rear axle here. I don't think this rear brake actually is going to stop anything, but I pointed it out to him. He doesn't want me to fix it, so okay, I'm not fixing it. But the right side shift, left side brake. What's going to get you in a crash on one of these isn't the right side shift. It's the fact that if you've been riding for a bunch of years, your brain is telling you that your rear brake is your right foot. Now, this being a chopper, there's no front brake. A lot of choppers do run a front brake. I think they should. I asked him if he wanted me to put on a disc and attach a front brake up there, and he said no, because it's got this, I don't know if that shows. Oh, yeah. It's got this vintage Invader rim that he wants to keep. But that's a spool only with no brake. So, okay, no front brake, rear brake only. And your brain has been trained that your right foot is your rear brake. So what's going to happen is he's going to get going down the road, a squirrel's going to run out in front of him, and he'll pull in the clutch, and with his right foot, he'll push down. His brain's telling him that's the rear brake. All he's going to do is downshift once and run right into whatever it is that he's trying to stop for. If you switch back and forth between right side shift bikes and left side shift bikes, you'll get over it and you won't be so fixated, but we'll see how this guy does. So even the Harley Sportster ran a right side shift right up into the early 70s. A lot of these bikes were used for circle track racing, and your left foot would be on the ground, your right foot could still shift. So they were always handier to have the right side shift. So while your Sportster was a right side shift, your big twin Harleys were either a left side shift or a hand shift. They ran a hand shift back then. But back to the original topic, which is a lot of stuff reaches a point where there are no longer experts. In this town in the middle of South Dakota where I'm at, there's no British motorcycle expert. So they came to me. Not because I'm an expert, but because I'm going to be able to poke at this thing, wrap my brain around how it works, why it works, and what needs to be done to make it work. And we're going to get this thing operational. And sometimes that's just what it comes down to. You don't end up with the person that's an expert in that field, but maybe you can find someone who's able to stare at it, listen to what the machine's telling him, and figure it out. So what we have here now is a running, semi-rideable, rigid Norton chopper. And I think it's going to serve him pretty well. Thankfully, it's not his only bike. He'll chuff around town on it a bit and then probably use it as a show bike also. I found a whole bunch of other problems on it that I don't like, but I'll point them out to him and I'll make a list and I'll just hand him all that stuff that he can he can fix, or he can make an appointment with me later to fix that. But anyway, I guess that's the only point I had, is if you're in a spot, you're into something where there are no experts, seek out somebody that's just got general aptitude, who can poke at stuff, look at stuff, and figure out what needs to happen to get the job done. Because there's more and more stuff where there simply aren't experts anymore. They're gone. And that information wasn't passed along. Or, like in this case, it's so obsolete. What's the point of there being a British motorcycle expert in South Dakota? There's just not enough demand for it. Anyway, I hope that helps anyone out. Take care, folks.